2, 3.
I'm Microsoft teaming with Microsoft Teams. I'm learning and dreaming with Microsoft Teams. The hub and the teamwork of Microsoft 365 in these quarantine times. I'm Microsoft teaming with Microsoft Teams. Yeah, with Microsoft Teams.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Inside Teams, episode 504. I'm your host, Stephen Rose. And once again, we're here to talk about Teams, and not just Teams this week. We're going to talk about Teams rooms. I just came back from EduCon, an awesome in-person event. It was so great to see people. And for all of you that attended, thank you so much. We showed clips from the show and one of our adoption sessions, shared best practices. It was a really great time. But one of the questions I got a lot, including at the AMA, is, hey, we want to start setting up Teams rooms. We want to, they're great. They do a lot of good stuff, but why and how do we do it? So that's what the show's going to do. Let's first of all talk about why a Teams room. And there really are four kind of key reasons. And this is what you should say when we go, do we need a Teams room? Absolutely. Number one, they're inclusive. They foster inclusive and interactive meetings for everybody, regardless of where they are. They're pretty easy to use. They deliver they deliver a consistent Teams experience. It's designed to make collaboration easy and hassle-free. They're flexible. You can turn just about any space into a Teams room. I've turned my office here into a Teams room with a wide selection of devices with tons of cool features, and they're secure and easily managed. You can keep devices protected and up to date with really great management capabilities and powerful analytics that tell you, hey, is everything running right? Is it looking good? So what's awesome is we're going to show you how to set one up. We're going to talk about some best practices. And with me is Mr. Teams Rooms himself, Mr. Greg Barabald. Greg, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Awesome. Have you been called Mr. Teams Rooms before?
I have been called a lot of things, but Mr. Teams Rooms is not one of it. I've been called the grandfather of Teams Rooms, which...
Ooh, I like that. I like that even better than Mr. Teams Rooms. So you will be the GP of Teams Rooms, but you're actually the PGPM, which means you're the partner group product manager for Teams devices. What does that mean to somebody off the street that doesn't work at Microsoft?
Well, it really means my job is to kind of envision and build a team that can deliver Teams Rooms to all of our customers around the world in any type of room. And right now, what it means is that my focus is really going to be around enabling hybrid work, enabling hybrid meetings. And Teams Rooms is such a critical piece of that. As you know, it's a pretty incredible time to be in the working world right now as people shift from what was fully remote to partially back to the office. But for many, we have teams that are permanently distributed around the world. They're not just choosing to work from home. We hired people that are in geographies not near us. And now it's more important than ever to have rooms that can support part of the meeting taking place physically together in a room with people that are remotely connected and have the same high degree of productivity and engagement, human-to-human communication that we've enjoyed for a long time now as we shift back to hybrid work in the room.
And we've seen a lot of people who had Skype for Business, and that was a product you were on for 8 years out of your 24 years at Microsoft, that said, hey, we moved from Skype for Business and we went to Teams and we're just using it for calling and chat. And we're really talking about all the adoption stuff. But one of the things that they've really seen is Teams Rooms really create a great way to have a really engaging experience. And what's interesting is as we're having this hybrid work, what they're finding is we still want to stay on our laptops and be in these Teams rooms. So we want to be able to let everybody see us and talk, but we also want to have chats with people and all of this. And we've made it easier where you can now say, hey, is there a Teams room near me that is open and available? And you can find it via, Bluetooth and walk in, immediately join the meeting, even from a mobile, be able to click and go in. So let's talk about the types of spaces that we should look at for Teams rooms. And I know that we have, kind of two different things. We have focus rooms we talk about and enhanced meeting rooms. So let's talk about focus rooms. And when we say focus rooms, roughly how many people are we talking about?
So we define focus room as 4 or fewer. And there's I would say there's really 3 types of rooms that we want to target. One is a traditional standard meeting room, and those you'll find in small, medium, large, extra large size from 6 to 8 people, 12 to 14, up to 16 or 24. The way I think about a traditional conference room is I call it a bowling alley. It's a long table down the middle with people on both sides, and they just tend to look across the table towards each other. The TV,
Right.
the camera is usually at 90 degrees to them. So it's a very intentional, they have to turn to look towards the TV. And generally, the easy
Right.
thing is to look across the table at each other. That's a more traditional room. And
Right.
around the world, those represent probably, across small, medium, and large, represent about 40% of all conference rooms. 50% of all rooms around the world today are focus rooms. And that's that 4-person kind of space. And the somewhat cool thing about a focus room is that you've already got people seated in a situation where they can see each other and have a face-to-face conversation, but they're also looking generally directly towards a TV. We call it a peninsula table. It comes out from the wall. You're looking towards a TV, you're looking towards a camera, sort of naturally have nice eye gaze with your remote audience. So what we've done with the room that you mentioned called the enhanced meeting room was taken some of the cues from that focus room, eye gaze toward a camera, eye gaze towards a screen, but still retaining that ability to talk to each other, and created a space where we can fit more people. We can go to 8, 10 people around a curved table, but everybody's looking in that same direction. Kind of think of it as a fusion between the old VTC spaces that would, be $100,000, $200,000 per room, and you needed one on each side. We're trying to create a model where you can have just one of those and do it for, under $50,000, and have remote people individually joining from a laptop or a phone or their home PCs, showing up on that stage in a beautiful way.
Now, some of the things that people have done in focus rooms to keep costs down, one of them is instead of using a touch display, they go with a non-touch, which does help to lower the cost. And with 4 people in the room, it's not always as necessary. I'm going to share a picture of our focus rooms that we have now at Astera, where we have a whiteboard and we have non-touch, but we really should not use a TV. I use a TV in mine here at home, and you recommend that in businesses they shouldn't use TVs, which seems kind of odd because you can go to Costco and pick one up super cheap. So why not just use a really nice 1080p 4K $250 TV in your focus room?
Yep. There's a benefit to the consumerization of product like that. Yes, you can buy displays for very little money, but they're built for home use. And a typical home use TV is on for a couple hours a day and then off, and it's off for most of the time. And you have somebody there that has the remote control, right? Turning it on and off and selecting the input. In a commercial space, in a conference room, what you want is a TV that could be left on 24/7. You also want a display that will wake up. If it does turn off, you want it to wake up automatically when there's a signal. So when that device, when the room system wakes up or detects presence in the room, you want it to be able to open the display, turn it on, and set it to the right input. And generally those capabilities, the long duty cycle and having it on continuously, and the ability to wake, are in more professional or commercial level displays. They do tend to be a little more expensive, but in the fullness of time, if you looked at the cost over 5 years, you're probably saving money, because a consumer grade display you're going to be replacing every couple of years. It's just not going to last. And you'll get all the support calls of, hey, the screen isn't on in this room. Where a professional display, you pay a little more up front, but you end up recouping that money.
So let's talk a little bit about intelligent cameras. One of the things that people have looked to go from one camera, which was just super wide showing everybody, now to some different types of cameras, intelligent cameras that can zoom in on whoever is talking. Also now using whiteboard cameras, which is one of those things that I really love. And I don't know how difficult those are to add to a Teams room. So let's talk about video and then we'll get into audio. So what are some of the important things that people should take into consideration with doing this? And how easy is it to mix and match cameras from different manufacturers, maybe an IBM whiteboard camera or an ePost whiteboard camera with a IBM or, like a Logitech Snap system like I have here, or one of those? How easy is it to sort of mix that up? And what should you think about for both placement of camera and how many and what types?
Yeah.
And I know question. I threw a lot at you, so
that's all good.
Pare that down.
So, actually, to reflect on your earlier point about inclusivity in meetings, inclusivity, in my mind, means that everybody feels present and included, and kind of on the same level playing field as each other in the meeting, whether they're sitting in the room together or they're remote. And one of the things that we've experienced over the last couple of years is that we've grown very used to this view of ourselves on camera, where we have a dedicated camera just for our face. And it was a little dissatisfying when we started going back into rooms with these traditional non-intelligent cameras, and everybody in that room was in the same field of view. And I didn't have a dedicated view for myself anymore. I felt less present in the meeting. I felt less included in the discussion. Um, Intelligent cameras are allowing us to position one camera in the room. In some cases, we'll have multiple cameras in the room that are finding faces, using AI to find faces and frame them in a way that they look like it's a private camera view just for them. And so for the
Right.
remote audience, they're seeing the faces in the room without all the other white space in the room, right? You don't need to send video of the empty table and the empty chairs and the blank wall. You want to optimize the pixels in that video for faces. And when you do, and you can see those faces clearly, all the expressiveness of people, the body language, when they sit there and have this face-to-face discussion is carried through for the remote audience to see. And it really makes you feel like more of a first-class participant in that meeting. So intelligent camera is really going to be critical.
Yeah, and our front row feature that we've put in Teams is going to help that too.
Yeah, it does. So the camera is able to capture the people in the room and stream that out. Front row,
Right.
It's kind of the opposite. It's letting the remote people have that presence in the room. So now when you're sitting in the room together, you can see all the remote participants on one level plane.
Right.
And it's sort of just a left to right eye movement across the room. You can see the people with you and the people that are remote, and then the people with you again. And it really starts to feel like everyone is there together. It's a really kind of immersive experience for the room. And it's pretty amazing. You have to experience it.
Yeah, I've had a chance to see it. It really is. Now, what about adding additional cameras? I want to add a second camera. I want to add a whiteboard camera. How easy is it to do that and to switch between those in meetings? Because I've had some folks ask that, and I don't really have a good answer for them.
Yeah, so one, super simple. I'll start with the in the meeting part. The content camera that's going to be dedicated for the whiteboard or for objects. You can have a pedestal camera on the table to show, if you're making widgets at your company and you want to share that, you can do that with a content capture camera. So those cameras are connected via USB to the Teams Room device. Very simple to run. And many times they're run over Cat5 extenders. So you don't have to run a long USB cable. You just run Cat5. And for the people in the room, it's as simple as pressing the share button. There's a button right on the console that activates the camera. And then the remote audience can see everything you write. So again, from that inclusivity point, when people got up in the conference room and started writing on the whiteboard, the remote people now feel really excluded from the discussion. Now with the whiteboard camera, they can see everything that's going on. If we go to a Surface Hub model, or maybe add a Surface Hub to the room as a whiteboard device, now the remote audience can participate as well. So instead of just watching what's happening, they can engage and draw on their own.
It also makes it more secure because what people were doing is, I'll take a picture of the whiteboard and throw it in chat. Now it's on a personal device and all that. By doing this, you're keeping all the content inside of content that's being managed and that is being controlled. So that's really good. All right. So a quick recap, because then I want to talk about audio and then I want to jump into a demo. So nearly 50% of rooms are focus rooms. So you really should think, is this up to 4 people? If it's more than 4, between 4 and 8, you said is small. 8 and 16 is what we refer to as a medium space, and 16 through 24 is a larger space. And then, of course, we can get into really big meeting rooms where everything's in the back that you're doing for like a 50-person room, and that sort of gets a little bit different. Don't use a regular TV. Touch versus non-touch is really all about budget. Any recommendations or thoughts there on a touch monitor versus a non-touch monitor in a focus room?
I think budget's a part of it, but the other part of it is accessibility. If you have that peninsula-style table in a focus room and a touch display behind it, it's actually very difficult to touch that display. The table's in the way, which is why we feel like the console is such an important part of the meeting room. That console is accessible to all. We also have remote capability. So on your phone, you can join what we call companion mode and use your own personal device to control the room. So you don't need to even engage directly with the console. So there's a lot of ways to control the room. The whiteboard or the touchable screen, I would say, optimized for spaces that are intended to be collaboration rooms. For a 16-person conference room, it's probably not an ideation space. It's more of a meeting room. For a huddle space with maybe more of an open floor plan, that's going to be designed more for that collaboration where you'll have multiple people up writing on the wall. So
Okay.
optimize for space, optimize, like you said, for budget. But we think it's an awesome alternative to the whiteboard capture, where everybody can really participate equally.
Okay. Let's talk about audio. I know one of the things that I have, and I'll kind of show it over there, is I have an ePost speaker. That one I'll actually can bring over to here if I'm standing over this way and talking to my device. But what are your recommendations as we take a look at audio and how to sort of best think about audio?
Well, first, I'll say audio is the most important part of that consideration for the design of the room. Video can glitch. You can see video drop now and then without it becoming really distracting to the meeting. Audio, you cannot. People generally can't tolerate audio dropouts. You lose train of thought. You lose, the context of the conversation. So, super important to design appropriately for audio. All of our certified audio devices are designed for specific room sizes. You don't want to put a speaker and microphone into a space that's designed for a smaller room or designed for too large of a room. So you want to be careful to align it properly to our certification guidelines. All of our certified audio devices are designed to handle echo and noise reduction from the room. Many are now off the table. So you'll see in some traditional rooms, you'll see a puck on the table or a set of satellite microphones on the table. They do tend to pick up a little more noise. People in the room sit there and tap on it with their pen, or they're eating their bag of potato chips or typing on the keyboard, and they do pick up a little bit of noise. We've seen a lot of success with bar style devices that are mounted under the display, or with ceiling tile microphones where you just get the mic off the table.
Yeah, the ones that are hanging down. Yeah, I've seen those. Sort of has a Hogwarts sort of feel.
Some are a little Hogwarts candle looking, but they actually just have tiles. They're just square tiles that replace one of your ceiling tiles. And the mics are built into that. So you don't even see it. It just disappears right into the room.
Let's actually jump into a demo because I really want to go through, because we say it's easy to set up, but I think it's more important to show that it's easy to set up. So let's go into our demo.
Setting up a new room device starts in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And here we're going to create a new room resource. So we're going to choose room, and we'll give our room the name boardroom and an email address. And then we'll set the room's capacity. And setting the capacity is going to let us do things like check for when the room is over its capacity using some of our smart cameras. So now the room is ready to go. The room has been created, although not yet able to be signed in by the room device. First, we're going to make sure the calendar is set up right for handling invitations that will come to the room. So we want the meeting to be accepted automatically when it shows up. We don't want double bookings. And for part of this, we're actually going to go over to PowerShell. And I'm going to load up the Exchange module here. And we're actually going to run a PowerShell script that will do several things to the meeting room's calendar. The first thing we're going to do is, of course, set up automatic processing. So when people invite it, if the room is free, we'll automatically accept and send an accept message back to the meeting organizer. We're going to make sure that we're keeping some of the properties like the comments and any sort of private properties that are set. And we're also setting a message on that room that you can see in Outlook as a tooltip. So now the room is created, calendar is ready. For the room system to sign in, it's going to need a password. So we'll use the address that we've created in the admin center. We'll create the password. And now I'm actually going to use PowerShell again to connect to Azure AD. And in this case, we're going to remove password expiration. So we want this to be set as a never expiring password. And the reason for that is the room does not give you a chance to log in interactively and change the password there. So we want it to be done only explicitly by an admin in the admin center. The last step here is we're just going to assign the room license. We're going to give this a Teams Room Standard license, and that will allow the device to now sign in to Teams and the calendar and Whiteboard and all of the services needed there. So if we jump over to our room, we've got our room console. We jump into settings, and you'll see once we're in settings, under the account tab, I can enter my boardroom address and the password that we've just created in the admin center. I'm going to set this to a Teams only and a modern auth sign in, save and exit, and we're good to go. The device is signed in now as boardroom. So with our device signed in, let's go back over to the admin center, and now we're going to switch down to the Teams admin center. The Teams admin center has a module or a node called Teams devices. And under there, you'll see all of the devices that you can manage for Teams, including our Teams room for Windows. This is the device that we just set up now. It's a Lenovo ThinkSmart. It's just been signed in, and you can see here all of the peripherals that are connected, from the room camera and the content camera to the displays, and they're all healthy and connected. I can also look at the health here. This is an overall health summary for that room, from the peripherals to the network connectivity of that room, and the system health and software update level itself. We can then, not on this particular device because we haven't used it yet, we've just set it up, but you can monitor activity and history of that room. So looking at meetings that were scheduled, number of participants, and from there you can also jump over to the call quality dashboard and look at the leg quality of that room. With the room available in the Teams admin center, I can fully configure every setting of that room, from the account stuff that I just showed you on the device to various meeting room features. I love the front row feature that we talked about earlier, so I'm going to turn that on and actually make it the default for anyone that comes into that room. We're going to set up third-party meeting join. We'll leave Cisco and Zoom as valid options here as well. My room system is a dual monitor room, so I'll leave that turned on. I just went and turned on Cortana activation as well, so my device will wake up with a voice prompt, and I can issue voice commands to join my meeting. Coordinated meetings is a really cool feature that lets the room system connect with a Surface Hub. And when one of the devices joins, it will automatically join the other device. I don't have one handy for this room, so I'll leave that turned off. I can activate different peripherals and set default volume for each. So if the room seems to be too quiet, I can turn that volume up. And then lastly, I can set the theme that I want on the front of room background image. So my room is configured, ready to roll. And let's say people are using this room and I'm monitoring it. I want to know if anything occurs in that room that I should be aware of. So if any sort of outage occurs, something disconnected or something fails. So I can go down to the notification and alerts tab, and I'm going to set up a new device state rule. And a device state rule is going to let me monitor and trigger through a variety of different channels what happens if a room were to go offline. So I'm going to pick the room that I want to monitor. And so I'm picking my boardroom device. And boardroom is now added to my scope. And anytime that device goes offline, I'm going to opt to have a message sent to a channel. So this is going to be a normal message post in a channel that I can monitor. I can also hook up or add a webhook so I can monitor it with a third-party IT management service. But for right now, I'm just going to stick with the channel. And that's ready to go. That's all I need to do. So I go over to Teams, I can look at these channels and monitoring alerts, and here I have an example of a message that I would receive when that device goes offline. So nice and easy for me to monitor it. I can come back into the admin center and see that I do in fact have a device offline. My healthy status is offline. I also, in this case, have a disconnected peripheral. My second display has been disconnected, and that occurred actually just before I powered down the device to run this test. So I'm going to plug it all back in, and we'll wait for the system to come back. While I do that, though, I'll show you an additional feature that we've recently added. I can turn off the critical urgent reporting for a given feature. So if, let's say, my display was disconnected, I may not want to receive alerts for that. In this case, I actually do, so I'll turn them back on. And there, actually, while we were doing that, our device came back online. We see it is now marked as healthy, and we're back in business.
Awesome stuff, Greg. I appreciate it. So let's talk about using old equipment. Some folks have said, hey, I'm on Cisco and we want to go to Teams rooms, or what if we have some older Polycom or Logitech stuff? How does it work with older things? What are the drawbacks? Kind of walk us through what the checklist should be if somebody has older equipment that they've been using in a multi-purpose room or an AV room, as they sometimes refer to it.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So first, I have to say the best experience that you'll get on any service, frankly, is with a native device designed for that service. So for Teams, if your company is on Teams, a native Teams room device will be the best experience. But we fully understand that it is impractical for most companies to go and replace, thousands of conference rooms where they've invested thousands of dollars each overnight with new Teams rooms. So we have a couple ways to handle that. One is a service that we call CVI, or the Cloud Video Interop. Cloud Video Interop will allow for a device like a Cisco Room System to join directly into a Teams meeting. And we provide the audio and video streams directly, the content sharing, and many of the control signals to let that Cisco device join kind of on its own native experience into Teams and have a very complete meeting experience. So we think that's a nice bridge to help people, make that migration to more native Teams rooms devices. The other way is through an experience we call direct guest join. So many systems, including Cisco and Zoom Rooms and others, can support direct guest join into Teams meetings. And similarly, a Teams room can join Zoom and WebEx meetings through direct guest join. So that is designed a little bit more as a future-proof mechanism. So it's not just as a bridge. That's meant for what we call occasional meeting join. So my company is entirely on Teams, but I do have to meet occasionally with customers or with partners or with vendors who are on Zoom or WebEx or something else. And it will allow for the Teams room to have still its familiar one-touch join, where I just tap the meeting invitation and it will join directly into that, I'll say, Zoom meeting. And I have a Zoom experience now on the front of room and on my console. And it lasts for the duration of that meeting, and I click end, and now I'm back to being a normal Teams room.
Yeah.
So between CVI, Cloud Video Interop, and our direct guest join model, we think we have a nice set of interoperability tools that let these rooms be extremely versatile.
I also know that a lot of the manufacturers also have buyback programs where they're willing to buy back older equipment as a credit towards newer equipment. If they're let's just take our 5 big conference rooms and really modernize this to take advantage of all the functionality in Teams, work with the vendors to do that, and keep some of the smaller rooms with the interop. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. Don't feel limited. And there are tons of great partners out there that can help you sort of work this out. So it really is about not looking at the hardware and equipment, but really starting at the space and figuring out what that experience is going to be and what makes best sense for that space. Would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely. Yep. Understand what people are doing in the room, how often the room is used, how many chairs you need to accommodate, and understand that as you switch to something like an enhanced meeting room, you're probably reducing the room's capacity by a little bit, maybe up to 50% even of what you had before. So there's a kind of an intersection between real estate and space management to purpose, like what people actually do in the room, and integration costs and needs. A great system integrator can help you solve really any of those challenges.
And I do want to call out one of the other questions we got is Windows versus Android. And unfortunately, we don't have time in the show, but we're going to do a bonus segment. So check out the bonus segment where we'll talk about Windows versus Android. But what I do is want to make sure we cover all of the great resources that are out there to help you. Of course, to go back through a lot of the stuff that Greg went through, you can go to MS Learn, where we have some great walkthroughs on managing, securing, deploying Teams rooms. Of course, docs.microsoft.com is your instruction manual where all of that lives. There's also some great links we're going to put up here on the screen, designing the new hybrid meeting experience for everyone, our Microsoft Teams Rooms calling and meeting solutions, and our Microsoft Teams Room packages and systems. on really kind of going through our various partners, manufacturers, taking a look at all the hardware, what's best for you. Kind of in closing, what are the 3 things that most people don't know as they're sort of approaching this that we haven't covered, or that you really want to make top of mind for them as they walk away and go, okay, I've got it. We're going to update some Teams rooms or create some new ones, or even better, create some focus rooms. And of course, there's always great devices like Surface Hub that are great and portable that you can bring into areas, things like that. So why don't you give us kind of your last thoughts, and then we'll say goodbye to everybody and call it a show.
Sounds good. I think there's a misconception that the room systems are designed only for these larger spaces. And I really believe that every room should have a Teams room device. And one of the reasons that's so important that we mentioned a little bit earlier was that the sense of inclusivity and, in a sense, the ability to be a neutral device in the room. We had a lot of what we call bring your own device rooms. That are using Teams, where people bring a laptop into the room and plug in a microphone or plug in a display. And really that one person really becomes the driver of the meeting. And in a room situation, what you really want is the people in the room to feel like equal. We're all equally participating in the discussion. And so a room system really helps, one, get the meeting started instantly with no cables to plug in. I just hit a button to start. And the account is a very neutral account that lets everybody in the space feel like they're equally represented in the meeting.
Great. I appreciate it. Greg, how can people, if they have a question or want to find you, are you on Twitter? Where are you at, so that people can say, hey, Greg, this was awesome. Quick question.
Yeah, I would start on LinkedIn to reach me. And then, of course, the resources you mentioned on Learn and Docs are great places to start. We have some awesome videos up there and documents about how to get your room systems going.
Perfect. We'll also put up your home address and your favorite restaurants you like to eat at so people can find you there. Greg, I appreciate you taking time out today. Thanks so much. I want to thank everybody who's joining us today on this episode of Inside Microsoft Teams. Again, we'll have all those resources. Greg is going to follow up with the blog. We're going to do our little bonus episode, and we look forward to seeing all of you on our next episode of Inside Microsoft Teams. Thanks for joining us today, and thank you, Greg.